I picked this up at a Barnes & Noble recently, sealed, and normally I don't buy very much Marvel. I don't buy anthologies or collections of theirs, but something about this just piqued my interest, so I decided to get it. And it's an interesting anthology. It's a mini-series that Alex Ross, I think the term Marvel used was that Alex Ross curated it, so I guess it means he oversaw it. And essentially, each of the 6 issues has an overarching story where Nightmare, Doctor Strange's foe, has trapped Doctor Strange, and he's somehow gotten the ability to invade the dreams of heroes and everybody, and then he's actually able to do it with celestial beings. That's never really explained. It's just the gimmick that's used to set the premise for having all these stories. So these stories are stories that never really happen, but what's interesting is that the setup and the premise is that they fit the chronology. So even though they didn't happen, they could have happened, and it wouldn't disturb any of the chronology or any of the canon of the books. So you have to look at this as an anthology of creators that don't do a lot of comics work anymore, or you know, they just do covers. They don't do panel to panel work. So the production is really nice. It's great quality. I just gonna go through some of the stories, some of the creators that I personally like, and there's a lot of them actually. So this one is a story by Kurt Busiek and drawn by Steve Rude, and it's just always amazed me how Steve Rude can capture that Jack Kirby style so well. This is just a fun story. It takes place, I believe, between Avengers 3 and number 4. This is a story by Dan Brereton, who I haven't seen do any Marvel work in a long time, but this was great. This is after the events of Giant Size X-Men 1, before X-Men 94. So it's kind of cool seeing the new X-Men, who are really new, and the previous generation of X-Men and the costumes of that time. It's a fun story. This is, and what I did like is that they did reach out to some independent cartoonists and, you know, creators to do some work. So this is a story by Eric Powell, who's known for doing The Goon. And there's some surprises too. Like, I'm not familiar with Paulo Rivera's work, but I really liked this Vision story. I just like the art very much. So he's somebody that I'll just look out for. Hopefully he'll do the art for something that's written really well. This is a pleasant surprise. This is a story that was written and drawn by Alan Weiss. Alan Weiss was an artist that did a lot of work. I remember mostly from the 80s, but it was infrequent work, but I always liked his work. This is a story of Submariner, about 1939, prior to the involvement in the United States in World War II. So it's kind of has that old-time feel, but it's written better than maybe those books back then were. This was a treat because I hadn't seen any of his work in 20, 30 years. And as I said, he didn't do a lot of work, and it's good to see that he can still come out and do some work. This was an interesting story. This was written and drawn by Bill Sienkiewicz. I'm a huge Bill Sienkiewicz fan. And it's narrated by the Watcher, but it's really about creating and why humans create. And it starts off with this boy who's learning how to draw, and then he gets into comics, and he's pursuing art and drawing as opposed to, you know, financial, you know, a job in the financial sector, which his dad later on wants him to do. And I wonder sometimes, like, how much of this is auto-bio, like how much he's drawing of this, because I've seen other interviews with Bill Sienkiewicz, and I know that he didn't come from an artistic family, as far as, you know, promoting the arts and being very much into the arts. So, like a lot of cartoonists and a lot of comic fans, I think he's kind of like, I wouldn't say the odd one, but a different one from the regular group of people. But this is a very cool, interesting story, and I like this a lot. Again, I'm a big Bill Sienkiewicz fan, but I think he put together a really nice story here. This is where Marvel reached out to another independent cartoonist. This is a short story with the original Black Widow from the 40s by Ryan Hershka. Here's a short story about The Thing by Sal Abenati. Sal Abenati happens to be the art dealer for Alex Ross and Bill Sienkiewicz. He also has a Kickstarter coming out. It should ship sometime later this summer, called The Hostage, which I liked quite a bit. He has a very unique style with a lot of different colors. It's almost like, I wouldn't say prismatic, but there's a lot of colors in his work. This is a actually interesting little story. I mean, it doesn't break any new ground, but it deals a lot with the thing of like how the thing doesn't consider himself like a monster on the outside and a regular human on the inside. Like the way he grew up, he kind of considers himself somewhat of a monster. And I don't know if that's something that's been retconned in the past or not. I really haven't read Fantastic Four in a couple of decades at least. So, you know, it could be, but I thought it was interesting, kind of short story about the thing. This is a story about Wong by Jean Ha. Jean Ha does a great job writing a funny story and drawing it and just doing a really good job. This was delightful. This is Adam Hughes does a story about Nick Fury right after the end of World War II. He is in Germany at the time, and he's reminiscing about Captain America, and that's what's called The Best of Us. This is a story that Greg Smallwood did about Nick Fury from his Steranko Shield days, and I really like the story. The dialogue isn't like 60s kind of kitsch. It's actually pretty good dialogue, but I like the you know, the bright colors and the styles and everything. It's that Secret Agent Fury vibe from the late 60s. It's fun. Lee Bermejo does a Silver Surfer story. I think the story itself is okay, little cryptic maybe, but the art here is amazing and usually he's doing DC work and he's doing primarily Batman, Joker, that line. So it's interesting seeing his work here. And this is in issue 6 where Doctor Strange somehow finds a way to defeat Nightmare, which really doesn't make a lot of sense. But what's really interesting is that when he finds out a way, the rest of the book is drawn by Mitch O'Connell. And he's not that Mitch O'Connell. He's a Mitch O'Connell from, he's done a lot of pop art work. He's done a lot of work for Rolling Stone and other magazines. And I really like this whole indie vibe that they come out with these bright colors and, you know, just kind of like this homage to the old days, and then it ends. But the weird thing is like I had to go and search on the internet because he's not even credited here, and it's rather strange. But that was fun. Again, it was good seeing them go outside of comics to get somebody to do this work. So the writing overall isn't bad. I think Kurt Busiek was involved in the Overture, which is the overarching story. I think it's mostly just Alex Ross. So it's similar to Kurt Busiek's writing, but there isn't a lot there as far as I think the intention was just to kind of have a frame, a setup for the reason to have these stories. But if you're a fan of Marvels and you're a fan of Kurt Busiek, and if you are interested in seeing an anthology of Marvel from some really top-notch creators, I'd recommend this. It's not a new direction. It's just revisiting characters that you've seen, but revisiting them in interesting ways and interesting stories. Anyway, that's it. Thanks.